Yeah, let's cross to the Defence Minister Peter Dutton now, who joins us from our Sydney CBD studio. Thanks for joining us, Peter. Look, Australia's got to do its bit and jump in line with these sanctions, but we don't have a lot of trade with Russia, and it's not going to have a great impact. And of course, this is not in our sphere of influence. This is an issue for NATO and the countries of Europe, primarily backed by the US. Are you disappointed at the lack of resolve from NATO and what they've done in the preceding months to try and warn off Vladimir Putin?
Chris, good to be with you firstly. Thank you very much. Look, as you say, we're a long way away from the Ukraine. I mean, it's the reason we've taken the decision not to send troops into that part of the world. We've got enough issues, as we know, in the Indo-Pacific at the moment. But it's important that we join with other like-minded countries, including our allies, in announcing the sanctions and whatever other steps we might take from here. That's all, I think, best done in a coordinated way. And it sends a very clear message to not just Russia, but to other authoritarian states who might be thinking that, they just see what happens with Russia, how far they can push it, whether there are any red lines, and whether they might follow suit. So it's important for us to stand with people of similar values and a belief in an adherence to the rule of law. So that's I think that's the approach that we've taken. I think it's sensible, and there's been a varied approach by some European leaders, some disappointing, some who I think have been very strong, and that's probably as you would expect.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Australia's done all it could be fairly expected to do and has said the right thing, but you're talking about NATO countries, and even the US posture in recent weeks has essentially made it clear to Vladimir Putin that all he would suffer as a consequence is financial sanctions, is economic sanctions. Now, nobody wants a war, but there's been no effort to deter him with military might.
Well, again, Chris, I mean, as you point out, nobody wants any conflict, and not with a nuclear power, not with anybody. So the deterrence has been, put in place, and we'll see now. It seems that it's probably on a path that nobody wants to see, but we'll see if there is an 11th hour reprieve and whether Putin arrives at a position of common sense. But, many people argue that regardless of what happened, short of a military intervention by the United States or allies, Putin was always going to head down the path of invading the Ukraine. And that seems obvious through all of his actions. And I think there's only so much the world can do. I think President Biden's done a great job in working with Germany to make the decision they have in relation to the gas pipeline. That wasn't going to be the decision, or it wasn't the position of Germany only a couple of weeks ago, and that's a very significant impact on Russia. But you're right, it's difficult unless you're prepared to go to full-scale war, which nobody wants. It's not in the world's interests at all. Hopefully the deterrence and the sanctions make Putin think twice as to how far he goes and the actions that he undertakes when he goes into the Ukraine.
Yeah, let us hope that happens. But what you must have been briefed on is what could occur in Ukraine with resistance from the Ukrainian military forces. I don't think a lot of people have focused on the fact that they have the second largest army in Europe. So it could be quite a horrible battle within Ukraine, couldn't it, if that country continues to resist?
I think that's a fair summary. I think there's no doubt that the might of the Russian military forces, particularly given the number of troops that they've amassed, the ships out on the Black Sea, their cyber attacks, etc., that they could overtake, airports and ports and military significant assets otherwise pretty quickly. But where they could get bogged down very easily is in that urban warfare, and there will, I think, be a significant resistance movement. It'll differ and vary across the country, but that's the likely scenario, and the Russians will be very conscious of that, because whilst it may take them only a couple of days or several days to overtake a particular city or region, the question is how they can hold that and whether they've got the staying force, particularly if the Ukraine forces are supported by outside forces. We don't know what military power they've got, what disposal. What weapons they've got at their disposal, etc. So there are a few calculations that Putin would have to make that would at least create a sense of doubt in his mind about how successful the whole operation could be.